Guys, I just wanted to go through every conference's worst recruiting class for 2023 after the early National Signing Day and see if there is any hope for any one of these teams. And then just in general, kind of take a look at other bad recruiting classes when it comes to teams struggling with NIL, what's going on, what's the dynamic, what is my opinion of some teams doing better than others, kind of talk about all of that. But first, looking at the ACC, Syracuse currently has the worst recruiting class in the ACC. They are 75th overall. You can see their top two players they have are both, I think, JUCO kids, both rated an 87. They have 0 4-star prospects. And guys, it's really not surprising with Syracuse and what they have going on. It is a little bit disappointing with the way their season started out so well. They beat NC State. They're ranked. At one point, I think their high water mark was 6-0, and I believe they're currently 7-5. So they really tapered off. Even in a watered-down ACC, they're going to have to do some significant work in the transfer portal, because I do think the ACC has gotten a little bit better with Miami getting more talent. We'll see if they're able to use it. Also, it looks like Clemson with a very young, quarterback that's talented, and Florida State coming on in the second half of the year. Syracuse, I'm not seeing much hope, although I will say they are the only team with a dome, so you think that might attract more offensive players. But in reality, this is a program that really needs to start investing significantly more in their football program, probably with a new head coach, if they want to have any relevance when it comes to college football. It doesn't help that their current footprint there in Upper New York, just horrible in terms of college football. There's no talent in that state, which is pretty crazy when you think about it, but it has virtually nothing. New Jersey is actually more talented when it comes to producing college football players than New York. Next, we're taking a look at the Big 12. It's going to be Kansas, who currently has 18 commits, including 0 overall 4-stars. They do have a bunch of transfer portal kids they are getting. This doesn't surprise me either. For his, Kansas's head coach, they extend him. They have a decent year where they start off really well, and we know how tough the Big 12 is. They kind of get cannibalized in the second half. They lose their starting quarterback, and they really kind of have a similar situation as Syracuse, where they struggle and really taper off. But overall, guys, Kansas, they're always going to be a basketball school. It is what it is. The one thing I'll say with Kansas, it's one or two options. Either build a new stadium or significantly renovate your current stadium. It looks like a high school facility. It's going to hold you back in terms of recruiting decent 4-star prospects when they've got offer lists that include Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, Michigan. You're not going to win any of those battles, point blank, period. So Kansas, we know they've had a really decent year, actually making it to a bowl game, but still they're last in terms of recruiting in the Big 12. They are 70th overall currently in the nation. Moving to the Big 10, the worst current class is Purdue now with 14 commits. They do actually have, I believe, 1 4-star prospect, or he's a commit. He hasn't signed yet, but they should get him. Either way, it's a tough year for Purdue. They haven't signed very many guys. They go through the coaching change, the Jeff Brom thing. If I was a Purdue fan, I'd be, you can't really blame the guy for going home, but I don't think going from Purdue to Louisville seems more linear to me. That's just my opinion, but Louisville actually is investing money into their football program through NIL, although they lost their 2 top guys they were trying to get with the NIL money. One of them was a 5-star running back who ended up going to A&M. It's kind of funny how that all works out, but they at least are investing more money. When it comes to Purdue's football future, signing the defensive coordinator from Illinois, I'm interested. I'm intrigued. Going to a more defense-first team, which is so anti-Purdue, will be something to watch. Certainly, they've had a really good basketball program. They've really never been able to get their football program off the ground. Even though people like Jeff Brom, they did make the appearance in the Big Ten championship game. I think their high watermark was beating Ohio State, during that crazy upset with Rondale Moore and things like that. Other than that, they really haven't done much at all in terms of having any relevancy in the AP poll or really being contenders. They kind of made the Big Ten championship as a default to how bad the Big Ten West was. So Purdue going through a transition year. And then the other team I wanted to talk about is Rutgers. So they have 20 commits. They're all 3 stars or lower. And guys, with the talent in New Jersey, Rutgers just can't get off the ground. I don't know what's going on there. Greg Schiano, they have no offense. They never have any offense. And I heard some Rutgers fans really starting to get irritated about how bad their recruiting's been, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They have 0 top 500 kids. Again, New Jersey is pretty talented. Their top 2 guys are both interior offensive linemen. Then they have a cornerback, another offensive. There's just not a lot of offensive skill position talent going to Rutgers at all. You would think, being where they're located, maybe at least 2 or 3 4-star guys, but they just simply don't have it. So I was really disappointed in Rutgers' class. Not that they should be a top 20 class or anything like that, but they really tapered off there. Moving to the Pac-12, the worst class, California, 14 commits. They do have 1 4-star, but this class is ranked 82nd overall. Maybe it'll get better. They've got maybe a few more scholarships here. They're still going to sign guys before the second National Signing Day in February. And they do have a crown, decent receiver there, Hunter, who's inside the top 400. He is a 4-star. Other than that, for California, it's more of the same. It's, they're kind of an interesting school where they have produced Aaron Rodgers and Jared Goff, but I don't know. I don't know how Cal football gets back. They might be moving to the Big Ten in the coming years, which would probably make things worse for them, considering, although the Pac-12 is going to be an absolute gauntlet next year, guys, if you see who's returning, every top quarterback in the Pac-12 is returning. It is crazy, and it's not going to be good for California. So these are all lower 3-star guys outside of the receiver, and it's just more of the same for Cal. There's really no investment. There's no crazy NIL splash like we've seen with UCLA and Dante Moore. It is unfortunate for their program, but they are still trending down. And then moving to the SEC, guys, who else could it be? It is Vanderbilt by far. They have the worst class in the SEC. They do have 1 4-star. The rest are 3 stars. They have 21 total commits. They're ranked 55th overall in terms of their class, and they always do seem to have the worst class in the SEC. Vanderbilt is the rare university where they legitimately are a baseball school. I mean, they're a baseball school. That's what Vanderbilt is, and obviously there's not a lot of money in college baseball, so it is tough. They also have the academic standards, some of the same problems that Northwestern has. Also, the issue with the fan base not being the biggest due to the academic standards, and it just all kind of compounds itself. And when you're playing in the SEC and you're recruiting these classes consistently, you're just not going to be competitive. I mean, they had games, I think they lost to Georgia 55-0 this year. You don't have the talent to be competitive in the SEC, and the SEC is only getting harder, so it's very hard for them to see a way forward in terms of their overall class right there. And then I am just going to try and find a few different classes. Like, here's another class that I thought was really disappointing, or they've just tailed off completely. It's the Indiana class, and they've got 16 commits, 2 4-stars. Indiana really took advantage of that pandemic year, and it was crazy. They almost beat Ohio State. They almost made the Big Ten championship game. But since then, everyone thought maybe Indiana football, Tom Allen, they're bringing it's somehow they're going to be competitive, and it's just not close. It doesn't help that they're in the Big Ten East, certainly one of the toughest divisions in college football. But this has just got to be really discouraging. This is not good recruiting. I think their highest rated commit all time, a linebacker, McCullough, who signed with them last year, was a top 70 overall player, was originally committed to Ohio State. He's already left the program, and he's on his way to Oklahoma. So it is demoralizing right now for Indiana. They certainly have struggled in terms of the trail. And then how about demoralizing for Iowa University? This is a typical Iowa class, I'll say that. But guys, the situation with Iowa, they've got a 5-star offensive tackle in their backyard. They get him committed. And then on National Signing Day, looky here, Nicky Saban flips him from their own backyard. Oh my goodness, it's so sad. It really is. And guys, we're seeing certain teams struggle with the portal. We're seeing other teams really say, we've got nothing to lose. We're giving these kids all the money they want, like Miami, like A&M last year. Some of these teams really realize that they can get on a level playing field in terms of recruiting if they give the kids money. And then you've got teams that are doing both, where Georgia is giving kids money, but they're also developing them into first-round picks. Alabama's now giving kids money, but they're also developing them into first-round picks. So we're seeing some real different strategies. And then you have teams like Ohio State who can't even raise the money to pay these kids. We're seeing a lot of different stuff. Miami doesn't care. They don't care about locker room issues. They want talent. Texas A&M doesn't care. They want talent. And I think for Texas A&M, they actually probably had to pay a lot of those kids more money just to stay with the program. Like, one of their 5-star, defensive tackles enters the portal and says, I'm coming back to Texas A&M, probably because they gave him a better NIL deal. So that's how crazy it's getting, but it is hurting programs. I think the one point I'll make, you take a look at Michigan recruiting. Michigan beats Ohio State back-to-back years, and their recruiting gets significantly worse after beating Ohio State and breaking through. One of the ultimate trump cards Ohio State had over Michigan is the total ownage, and then Michigan beats Ohio State back-to-back years, and they get worse because of NIL. It is crazy, and now Jim Harbaugh says, I don't even care. I'm just going to go to the portal and get all my players that way. So we're seeing different teams size up the NIL situation. Sometimes you can have the best of both worlds. That's when you see an Alabama class that's got like 7 or 8 5-stars. You see these Georgia classes that sign like 10 top 100 defensive players. It's just ridiculous. There is starting to become a significant talent gap there's like a tier 1. To me, the tier 1 is Georgia and Alabama in terms of the talent. This is for like 2024, 2025. Georgia, Alabama, then there's a tier 2, then there's a tier 3. And that's just how it is right now in terms of overall talent. Once Ohio State loses most of their kids from the 2021 class, which was loaded, Ohio State's overall talent is going down. And really, Ohio State's class, unfortunately, is a lot of fool's gold when you look at it, because 3 out of their top 4 commits are receivers. There's just no depth. There's no superstar pass rusher. There's no superstar defensive back. That doesn't exist in their class, which is going to be a major issue when you look at Alabama and Georgia stacking talent on top of each other, and then you also have the portal situation. So it is interesting to see the overall dynamics of recruiting and some of the worst classes in terms of NIL. I think, we're going to look back on this period and be like, what a mess that is. How did it get that bad? It's a total disaster. Of course, right now we're in the period, so we really can't say that. Now it just feels like the norm. Oh, it's the norm to not have rules, and you've got some teams offering kids, and it's all legal because they all do it. And what are you going to do? Bull ban all the universities who are doing it? Obviously, you can't do that, so everyone cheats, and it becomes de facto legal to do something that the NCAA says is illegal because they have no governing power over any of these schools' actions. And then what's going to happen is at some point, they're going to put, I don't know if you make the athletes employees, that's what this is trending to. And that's really what that's not what college football was about. It really wasn't, but I think at this point, they don't even care. you can't even threaten these people and say, oh, I'm going to stop watching college football. They don't care. Legitimately. It's like the NFL putting games on Amazon Prime and people saying, we're just going to stop watching it. They already have so much money. They have so many people who will watch it. Even if they lose people, it doesn't matter. It generates too much money. They don't care. So it doesn't even matter to college football and any of these universities whether or not people hate NIL and they say they're going to stop watching. It just doesn't matter. There's so many fans within college football. It will never die unless you get like so many people to come together, which will never happen. Because of course you have universities and fan bases like Miami who fully endorse this type of stuff because this is the way they can compete and they can win recruiting battles that they have no business winning if they can outbid another team, even though their development sucks, even though they have no history in the last decade of producing elite players. It doesn't matter. If they offer more money, they will win out. And this is not me going against Miami. This is what's happening, right? This is what's certainly a lot of schools are paying kids. It's become legal, basically. I understand it, but I'm just saying different schools have different approaches to it. And we'll see what ends up happening in the coming years because this has changed so much just in the last 2 years with how recruiting is done. And they are saying that, oh, it's going to create more parity. Guys, I think the whole parity argument, to me, gets blown to smithereens. We're getting a 12-team playoff. The 12-team playoff is what's going to create more parity. That will create more parity. The whole thing with, oh, all these other universities getting 5 stars creates parity. I don't know if I can buy that considering these kids can leave in the portal like a drop of the hat in a year. So I don't know, guys. We'll have to see if they're able to actually keep these kids on the team and develop them, that they pay and things like that. So we'll see what ends up happening. But I just wanted to go over some of the worst, and it's the normal, teams. It's Indiana, it's Vanderbilt, these horrible teams, Syracuse, and they really don't have any hope for the future unless they really start investing into their programs, and I don't see any of these teams doing that personally. So either way, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.